our second panel this afternoon is on leadership, and who better to moderate that than Ranjit Rajan. Ranjit is co-member of the IIM Alumni Network and is also a thought leader and futurist. He's the author of Digital Nation along with Dr. Syed Al-Daheri. He talks about how the UAE is building a future on tech innovation. He's also the head of research Middle East, Turkey and Africa at IDC. And do not let his youthful looks fool you, because he's an IIM Cal alumnus from class of 2000.
All right, thank you so much for staying back for this panel. I know that I relish enormously the challenge of being the last, moderating the last panel before lunch, holding you back from food. So my name is Ranjit Rajan, and as Rijoy very graciously introduced me, I have had the opportunity to be part of this great nation, been at the forefront of advising technology leaders here and across the region on digital transformation and so on. So I think this is this panel is really going to talk about leadership, and that is the main theme of this event today. So I've got a set of eminent panelists waiting for us, waiting to join this session. But before that, I think it's important to frame what leadership means for all of us going forward. It's fair to say that leadership has been tested and challenged by the pandemic. I mean, leaders across the world, nations, organizations have been challenged enormously by the pandemic. We've had to, as leaders, we've had to make, we've had to be agile in terms of our business operations to address volatile market conditions. We've had to deal with staff who are working remotely, who have their own problems with regards to personal loss and during the pandemic, adjusting to work from home and so on. We have customers whose needs have changed enormously during the pandemic, so we have to listen intensely to customer needs and the changing needs, and the needs are changing all the time. So as leaders, we faced tremendous challenges during the pandemic, and looking ahead, the challenges that leaders face are also quite significant. If during the pandemic, we've seen that 4 key paradigms have accelerated. One is digital transformation. We've seen tremendous acceleration of digital roadmaps across organizations. The second one is environmental sustainability. There's enormous urgency and focus on what is called ESG, environment, social, and governance. We've also seen this, what we've just heard about inclusion and diversity. So tremendous focus among organizations on diversity and inclusion. And finally, this growing war for talent across the world. So as leaders, we are forced to address these 4 key paradigms. And the key qualities that we need to instill as leaders in order to address these 4 paradigms are also changing constantly. So we've got to, as leaders, instill qualities of empathy, of transparency, of trust, of creativity. And so, as we move up our organizations through the pyramid of our organizations, we've got to start, instilling these qualities as leaders. So the challenges that face leaders in the future are quite significant. So in the context of that, let me just introduce my panelists before I continue, before I take all the time that's been allocated to me, for the panel. Let me introduce our panelists. I would like to first introduce Poonam Bhojani. Poonam, please, if you can come up on stage. Poonam is the CEO of Innoventures Education. Innoventures Education is a leading pre-K-12 international private education company that first set up the first all IB school in the UAE, and it manages several schools and nurseries, including the DIA at Emirates Hills and Al Barsha, the College and International School, Raffles World Academy, Raffles International School, and so on. So a number of schools. Poonam, thank you so much for joining this panel discussion. I would also like to invite Atif Albraiki. Atif is the Chief Executive Officer of Abu Dhabi Health Services, Abu Dhabi Health Data Services, or Malaffi. For those of you who don't know what Malaffi is the region's first health information exchange platform. And that connects the private and public healthcare organizations in Abu Dhabi. And it enables the real-time exchange of patient information across these entities in Abu Dhabi. And Thirdly, Mr. Ramesh S. Ramakrishnan. Mr. Ramakrishnan is the chairman of Transworld Group and Wami Capital. Transworld Group is a global shipping and logistics conglomerate which offers a range of solutions of ship owning to project logistics. It's got operations spread out across the world, including the Middle East, Asia, and so on. And he's also the chairman of Wami Capital, which is a single family office. I would also like to invite Dr. Eesa Bastaki. Dr. Eesa, some of you might be familiar with Dr. Eesa. Dr. Eesa is an educator, an academic, a thought leader. He is the president of the University of Dubai. He was previously a professor at UAE University for over 30 years. He's also chairman of IEEE, the UAE chapter, and the Emirates Science Club, and the head of the Emirates Science Club. Thank you so much, Dr. Eesa, for making time today. All right, so I've got the pleasure of having this wonderful panel. So let's get started. So Poonam, if I can start with you. Let's start by talking about leadership styles and leadership practices that have worked for all of you. So Poonam, if I can start with you. You obviously, you're managing a large organization. If I recall, you have, across all the organizations that you lead, you have over 7,000 children, students from over 120 countries. You have over 1,000 teachers and administrative staff. You have, people in your organization from over 40 countries from around the world. And over the last couple of years, the education sector has undergone tremendous transformation. I mean, profound transformation. The whole shift from, in class or in person learning to remote and distance learning, and the emphasis on distance learning itself, but also your staff and teachers have also had to adapt to this new model. So how has it been for the last couple of years? How have you been able to address these challenges? And what is your style of leadership that has helped you navigate these challenges?
Thank you for a wonderful introduction to leadership per se, and for just summarizing the challenges that face all of us in today's world. I think before one talks, you said your question is in two parts, as I understand. One is how do you cope with the challenges that we face today in the last 2 years or so, and what is your leadership style and how has that emerged through recent times in particular. What I want to say is actually leadership styles in general are a function of the kind of organization you're in. And I'm very fortunate to be in the education sector, which is all about a growth mindset, and it's intrinsically about developing people, and so you have to keep your mind developing at all times. So before we talk about leadership styles in general, it's the kind of organization, and you can never divorce that from the kind of person you are, and what your upbringing has been, and what your background has been. So it's a combination of these two things. Regarding the challenges, yes, I think the spirit of Dubai and the spirit of adaptability and the spirit of innate resilience of our customer body, so to say, our student body, the parents, that part was faced. I think, yes, it was a challenge, but it wasn't something that we couldn't overcome quite easily, and we had to do a number of things there. But I think first about the leadership style in general, and in like educational institutions in particular. I think it has to come from, it stems from a sense of purpose, or the kind of, what is the reason for your existence, It comes from the vision that you have for your organization. It comes from a set of core values, all of which must be underpinned by the passion of the people who are in it. The staff, the leadership teams, and ultimately the responsibility rests on the leader, so to say. And So for me, in that experience, leadership is something, it's a huge responsibility in one way. It's a privilege, no doubt, but it's a sense of responsibility that you have towards your stakeholders. Like, you can never bring back the day in the life of each child that comes to your school. So you cannot say that I lost this day of learning due to the pandemic. You've got to find ways of bridging that. It also comes from, just staying absolutely being persistent to whatever your goals are, whatever your purpose is, driven by, your mission, your vision, your core values. And you've got to be very passionate, I've already mentioned that. And it's got to be all about the people. It's got to be the first and foremost thing is about the people. It's got to be about the people in an educational institution in particular. It's got to be about the people. So it's about growing the mindsets of everybody. And there are a number of ways that can be done. It's by showing a sense of empathy, caring genuinely for the well-being of those who are working in the organization. I mean, I'll just take one example. When you said the pandemic was there. Now, it was very important that in our kind of thing where we have so many young teachers working, we have our staff is from the ages of like about 22, 23 until they go on, maybe 4 or 5 decades older than that also, at least 4 decades older than that. So we've got a wide range of staff. They come from over 50 different countries, and when the pandemic took place, they all felt so well taken care of because we had the senior leadership teams. We discussed it, and the senior leadership teams would be calling at least 10 to 12 staff every day to check about their well-being, and calling upon them. So it was, very, the well-being of the people. And so these are the most important things. Another very important thing is, in any organization, you mentioned about the leadership style. In an educational institution where the teacher is really the most important part of, the teacher is the one instilling the knowledge in the students, you've got to have a very distributed leadership style. That can only happen effectively if there are proper goals, if there are, if everyone understands the common values, there are proper goals identified, and there's an effective monitoring system. Regarding my own style, it's a little bit a function of my background. I am called very autocratic. I tend to believe that I'm democratic, but I am known to be very autocratic. I have 2 brothers at home. They think I'm very autocratic. I have 2 sons. And, my whole journey in leadership started with my husband really, when we started Innoventures education. He was the one that kept pushing me forward. Even now, if I find that I need to go somewhere, people talked about mentors and everything, I know that Avi is here. For me, I just go to him and I say, I am having trouble, I need help, tell me now how I should deal with this particular problem. So I think, that's been the journey, that's the style.
Well, you don't come across as being too autocratic in this panel discussion, at least.
I know how to mask it. I try to let people believe I'm democratic, but deep down, it's not.
Good. All right. Thank you so much, Atif. If I can come to you. So you are in this position in this organization, where you have to bring together so many different stakeholders to the table in order to put this platform together in Abu Dhabi, private sector, the public sector, and you've got to persuade them to come and join your platform in some ways, right? And you'll be able to do that, bring together all these hospitals, private sector, public sector, hospitals together, and then get them to work together to create this platform. But at the same time, you also lead an organization that has such diversity, different nationalities, but also that one that needs to drive more innovation, right? It's technological innovation that you need to drive in order to develop that database and that platform. And you're building this deep talent in healthcare. So by the way, before I proceed, I need to congratulate you on being one of the 6 recipients of the Global HIMSS Awards. So Atif has just been awarded, is one of the 6 worldwide recipients of the Healthcare Information Management System Society Awards. He's just been awarded yesterday, I believe.
Yes. Thanks, Ranjit.
Yeah. So how do you manage? What has worked for you?
Okay, so maybe I'll cover the first part, which is Malaffi is connecting public hospitals with private hospitals. And the first challenge was to build that trust of sharing medical records between competing facilities, competing organizations. At the end, private sector is into the business of providing healthcare. There are CFOs who are looking at the bottom line. When you start sharing the medical record of your patient, then the other facility can start attracting that patient. So there was that challenge that we had to tackle. We were lucky in Malaffi specifically. It was a government-driven initiative. It was a public-private partnership where the healthcare regulator had put a policy where it was mandated for every healthcare facility in Abu Dhabi to share the medical records. But then on the ground, you need to work on a stakeholder management strategy to first build that trust, to make sure that data sharing is in common ground between the different facilities. So there won't be, for example, a government hospital that is getting a preferential treatment compared to a private hospital, or Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi, which is semi-government hospital, getting preferential treatment. So making sure that everyone is sharing medical records at the same. Now, there was various political pressure from various stakeholders saying, well, we are different. We know we need this term, we need that term. Again, we get the support from the regulator, from healthcare regulator, making sure that everyone is sharing on the same terms. One key aspect also is speaking at the various levels of the organizations. So we had stakeholder management with the CEOs, CFOs, chief medical officers at the facilities, at the hospitals, clinics, and centers. But then also within the Malaffi team, we have doctors, nurses, who go and speak to the physicians and the nurses to convince them about the benefit of sharing medical records. And I think, Malaffi also, again, we're lucky that the nature of the work that we are doing is touching human life, it's touching the patient. And again, going back to the stakeholder, we're always trying to bring that, let's say, win-win situation and the common purpose of saving the people in Abu Dhabi. We're saving the same patient who's moving between the different facilities. So bringing that common purpose between all the stakeholders. And finally, when all that does not work, you need to use the regulation, which is that, okay, that's a mandate, and everyone has to connect, and making sure that there is clear timelines with commitment and consequence if people don't connect on time. So that helped us a lot in terms of, bringing all the stakeholders together. And alhamdulillah, today we have 99% of all the facilities, more than 2,000 facilities in Abu Dhabi, connected and sharing medical record at real time. Now, when it comes to the second part of that, we have 16 nationalities within the organization. And yes, it was challenging, when people are coming from different culture, different background, different way of working, working within a very aggressive time frame of delivery set by the government. It was challenging to put all the team members and start to, let's say, work on a common culture within the organization in a very short period. So we had to use different style of leadership, I would say, in an organization. Sometimes, at the early stage, I had to be autocratic. I had to be firm in terms of, okay, these are the timelines. This was the business plan that was already done. New team members were coming to the organization. People have different, let's say, ideas. Great, we can listen to those ideas, but now we have these timelines. This is the architecture, this is the solution, this is the operating model, this is the business model. We just need to work on delivering to the timelines. And let's say, currently, I tend to hope that I'm more democratic, to listen to different team members, different ideas, communicating more. The more that you can communicate, the more transparent the leadership in the organization can be with all the team members, the better it is. And communication is always important, and there is no enough communication. Constant communication always helps to bring everyone together. And to be also strict with, especially when you have different cultures within the organization, is to have strict code of conduct and not to tolerate any, let's say, ethnicity discrimination, or and we had occasions where people were, had to leave the organization because of certain behavior which were not acceptable. So just setting the right culture from day one within the organization, that we are all Malaffi, we're one team, we have different backgrounds, but we have to respect each other, and there is also, again, a consequence if we're trying to bring our own personal, let's say, behaviors that are not acceptable in the organization.
Thank you. Well, it seems that he's also started out being autocratic, and now he's changed. I think Poonam. Yeah. All right. So thank you. Thanks, Atif. Mr. Ramakrishnan, if I can come to you next now. You are the chairman of Transworld Group of companies and Wami Capital, and you've grown this organization from, I believe, in the which you joined in the 1970s, or you took over from your father in the 1970s, and you grew this organization, which now spans across the world, with operations in Asia, in the Middle East, and across cities in India and so on, in logistics, shipping, and so on, which is about 35 to 40 years of leading this organization. So, what are the kind of leadership lessons that you've learned over time, and how has your leadership evolved? Because I believe that you went through this, this industry went through a number of crises. I think you were pointing out to me earlier about the crisis that you went through in 2008 with the global economic crisis, and now the pandemic and so on. The logistics and shipping industry has gone through many ups and downs. So what are the kind of key lessons that you've learned in leadership through these crises and during your tenure at Transworld?
Thank you very much, Ranjit. I must, in fact, thank you all for giving me an opportunity to be present in the midst of such a wonderful audience. Firstly, I must say that unlike a lot of others who are sitting here, I have not had the privilege of going to an IIM or an IIT. So I come from a very raw background. And whatever I'm going to say is going to be purely on the basis of very practical experience that I've really gone through in the past 40, 45 years of running this organization. Firstly, my father, Mr. Swami, he started the organization, and he was born in a very small town in Kerala. And at the very young age of 24, he developed this disease called macular degeneration, which virtually made him completely blind on the left eye at the age of 25. And then gradually it started deteriorating, and he lost the remaining part of 80% of his eyesight on the right side as well. So he was left with just 20% of vision. But then he worked in a very small shipping agency, so to speak, in those days in Kerala, and he was a stenographer. But he had a dream, he had a vision that he wanted to own ships. So I always keep telling my people that you don't really need to have an eyesight to have a vision. He, in fact, taught us many things. One of the things was human relationships and values, truly, so to speak, which has been embodied in me right from the time I got. And I had the luxury, I had the pleasure, like most of the others, if they had gone to a college in Bombay or educated themselves in Bombay, you always had an opportunity to go to the colleges in the morning and then get on with work. And Bombay taught you many things. It taught you the art of staying ahead, thinking ahead of the others, fighting your way ahead and going ahead. So I had the opportunity of going to the university and then going to the office and working and learning from there. Even today, the values and the human relationships are the ones that are taken as the cornerstone for the organization. In fact, giving back to the society is something which I learned very early in life. And in fact, me and my family, my children, my wife, the entire organization lives and breathes with this particular aspect, that is to give back to the society. And that's so important for us. That being said, shipping and the logistic industry, which most of you all know, has not been a very easy ride for the last so many years. I mean, it's just that in the last couple of years, we've been hearing about supply chain issues and logistics and, you know, all these kind of things that keeps coming to the forefront, which is obviously adding cost to a number of people who are in business. But I think what's very relevant, what's very important is, for me personally, my leadership actually has evolved. I wouldn't say that it is democratic, it's autocratic, or it's, you know, kind of dictating. No, it's not that. It's, I think over a period of time, it has gone through a process of evolution. I started at a time when I had to be like everyone else in the organization. I had to learn right from the bottom up. I had to be working. Remember that, you know, when you go into any organization, if you are the son or the father who starts a business, people are going to only suspect you all the time. They're not even going to come close to you and share what is possible and what's not. But I think these are all the challenges. But I think importantly, the human relationship element changed that course. I was very friendly with all our people who worked for, went out of my way to support them all the time, in whatever way they wanted. And at the same time, I realized that they were also giving back so much back to the organization. So ultimately, like everybody spoke, and what Indranui spoke in the morning, to me, I think ultimately it's the human beings that is going to be very important. You know, if you go back to the old days, you started calling people working for you as labor, then it became personnel, then it became human resource, and today we are talking about human beings as capital. And that's the evolution that has gone through with the management. I think there is no fixed one thing to say that this is how I have sort of driven the organization. This is the right thing that I have had to do. I had to change the style every time, each time that I had to look at an issue. Because what happens is any issue that is kept on the table here, you have to look at it from different angles. Sometimes it needs extremely tough handling. Sometimes you need to be very gentle with the way you approach. Sometimes you need to be very, very having the vision that what is likely to happen and start planning yourself forward. A lot of these aspects have dictated the way I have sort of gone about doing my business. But I must underline and say that at the end of the day, it is the people who work for you. It is the people who nurture your business. And you have to be there with them, not finding fault if they make a mistake, not going overboard if they end up producing all the results that they have promised. I think you have to balance yourself and be there at all points of time to be able to support. End of the day, it's important, the organization, I mean, I must say that for Transworld and Wami, in our organization, everybody breeds the values that we have really put out. Most importantly, integrity is something which is so important for all of us. So that's something which is imbibed, practiced right across the organization. I mean, we've had issues, serious issues in the year 2008 when there was a severe meltdown. You know, we have had cases where we had ships on charter to us for a relatively longer period. And if I was to use this term, the business just fell off the cliff. Overnight, in a span of a couple of weeks, 3 weeks' time, the charter rates went down by almost 90%, and you had obligations to carry on with your charters for a period of 1 to 2 years, 3 years. So you had issues, you had times when you ended up having to bleed a lot of money in a very short span of time. But I think important thing is to be extremely strong in those times. You have to be you should have the tenacity to face any of those challenges. You should have the team, and they should all play along with you and be in believing when you tell them that, yes, that's okay, let's move on, let's move ahead, we'll still find an answer. That gives them enormous levels of confidence. And I think you have to be with them and not get fluttered, and not get disturbed by any of these disturbances that's happening around you. Way back in a couple of years back when we had COVID, again in our industry, when COVID struck us in March of 2020, we as an organization, we took sufficient number of steps to be ahead when it came to digitization and the transforming the organization. That helped us big time. But more importantly, the senior leadership, all of us got together, discussed what is it that we have to do. And I must say that the entire senior leadership took major wage cuts at that time in March of 2020. And the reason why they all wanted to do that was to ensure the people lower down were not affected. Because it was important that people who work for you right from the bottom, they are the ones who are breathing the organization. And it is your responsibility to be there to take care of them. And I must give the credit to our entire senior leadership who agreed to take massive cuts. Of course, thereafter, subsequently, we gave them double bonus and we sort of set it all up. But even in those times, we weren't sure in March how the industry is going to behave and what is it likely to kind of happen. But as luck would have it, fortunately for our industry, for the shipping and the logistic industry, this COVID has been a boon. I mean, I think we have never seen the kind of upswing that we have seen in the last couple of years. It's causing enough and more of disturbances and damages for the consumers and the users. But I think for me, it's an ongoing way of dealing with things. There's no fixed way how you want to deal. It has to be very flexible in nature. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
No, you did, and you did very well. Very, very inspiring. I think empathy has been has been one of the key attributes that leaders had to instill, especially during the last couple of years, and see that across all organizations, right? I think Poonam, you spoke about that as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for your for sharing your experiences. Dr. Eesa, thank you so much for making time today. So, Dr. Eesa, you've been an academic, you've been a thought leader, you've been an administrator for so many years, and you've been a leader of so many associations and so on. So what are the kind of I think we spoke about this before as well, about your style, and you mentioned about, I think you touched upon some of the points that Mr. Ramakrishnan mentioned about happiness and so on. So can you tell us a little bit more about your style of leadership and what has worked for you in your leadership roles across, not just at University of Dubai, but also the other IEEE and other associations and communities that you're part of?
Thank you, Mr. Ranjit. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good afternoon to all of you, especially the alumni of IIM. I think you are proud to be one, and I'm also very lucky to be here to talk to you a little bit about the leadership. I think I agree with all the three panelists, and they spoke well. It's just that before I start, I'd like to say something. My father told me three things very important, and from there, I'll start my discussion. First of all, he told me always tell the truth. Be truthful always. Secondly, respect the law. Thirdly, be humble. So these are three principles I have the rest of my life. I've never lied in my life, by the way. I'm not kidding. Because of this principle he instilled in me. So these are the principles I work. Now, also in the country I've known something, maybe you don't know, I have a motto. You talk to anybody in the country, the leaders, they know what's my motto. It's been a long time ago. Made in UAE, sold globally. Means we have to create something, especially after oil. What is it we need to do to create something after oil? So now, this is my goal. My goal is made in UAE, sold globally, specifically after oil, to make an sustainable economy as it goes on. And from here, I start my work. So I have in mind, whatever I do, it should meet the goal that I have, which is made in UAE, sold globally. Regarding the style, before I go to the styles, I like to say that there are certain traits in leadership that you have to have them in order to be successful and continuously successful. Everybody knows a leader, if it doesn't have vision, is not a leader. You have to have a vision because a leader, you're looking far away from now. You know the government, the whole country, they're looking at 50 years from now, right? And Sheikh Muhammad also said that I don't agree anything but first. And he said also, His Highness, he said that the work towards excellence or the race towards excellence doesn't have a finish line. So you need to continuously work. And then, of course, the challenges make men. Well, men means men and women, it's just. So it really, that's the three things that we always look at. We want to be the first around the world in many indices and so on. So you have to have a vision. You have to have a plan to reach that vision. You have to be ambitious. You have to be innovative. You have to empower. Empowering is not enough. You have to empower. After empower, you have to enable. Give them the right tools for them to be successful when they're empowered. And then you have to produce leaders. Sheikh Muhammad said to the youth, he told them, I want you young leaders to be lions and lead lions, not sheep. So you have to create leaders, they'll be stronger as you create them. And then you have to be bold in your decisions. You have to take the risk. And what Sheikh Muhammad said, the risk is not to take the risk. Or you miss 100% of shots you didn't take, right? And then you have to think out of the box. People talk about it. You don't close your mind. You close your thinking. You need to open it completely. Because this is where you want to go. You want to be something different than others. You want to be disruptive. So think out of the box. And then create an environment, an amicable environment. You create that kind of environment so people can work. So let's go back to the university. When I started university, I look at so many styles. Actually, I like the amalgamation of styles, not just one leadership style. And believe me, everybody who's successful has all the 12 to 16 styles in the world. They have all of them. Even autocratic, as she said, even dictatorship is there. But it depends when do you need it. But some of them, you always need them. You're talking about benign leader. You're talking about democratic leader. So what's your idea? What do you think? You always say that. And in the University of Dubai, we have a weekly meeting. Every week we meet since ages, since I took over the university. It's only 8 years, not ages. And we have every week we meet. I called at the beginning Blue Ocean Strategy, that meeting. And it's open to anybody to come in, faculty, staff, anybody. And then I changed it to think tank team, and now it's called Sparks. Every person has participated in the ideas that we have implemented and became successful. So it's an open forum every week we meet. Every week. So my idea is not enough. And the leadership of UAE style, Dubai style, if you read the leadership Dubai style, this shows that our leaders, when they want to decide, they bring all the concerned people, the experts, and then they discuss everything. At the end, the leader chooses. So it's not the majority, it's just he or she takes all the information, and then, according to it, the leader decides. And this is how it should be. So I realized when I came to university the first day, I was shocked. I was sitting down, somebody entered, and he was bowing and coming inside my office. I said, please go back and come back straight. I realized there's something very huge I need to do to make sure that tell the people we are all the same. The students, all they have my number. They call me and they tell me, I'm sorry I'm calling you. I said, you should call me. If I don't serve you, I'm not the right person to be the president of the University of Dubai. So at the end, we are serving people. Serving the students, I'm serving the faculty, the staff, the students. We need to serve them. Once they know they're served, they will give everything you need. Then before I created this, I was the first in the country, I think, even maybe. We have a walk at work every day from 1 to 1:30. All of us walk as part of the job, in terms of health-wise, in terms of socially getting together. There's many mingling around as we walk. Students come and ask you questions. They have to walk with me. All this create an environment that we are the same. We can work together. We can ask anybody you want. We can excel. All this together, it happened. And it happened really. Then I created the Happiness Council. Of course, Happiness Council came after. I already had it, but there's no name for it. Once there was Happiness, or Minister of Happiness. So all these together, Happiness Council, and we don't see anybody better than other. We are all the same. Everyone serves something. So we are servant leaders also. Plus, it's very important for you to be innovative. You have to think disruptive. That's why I created the disruptive education. And we are working on it. What is it that can make education disruptive, that completely different than what we see today? But also, you have to be, look for opportunities. Sometimes something comes and suddenly you don't say, no, I'll not do it. Take that opportunity, take it. And then try to see what it is. These kind of amalgamation of leadership, to be nice, to be humble, humility is important. You have to make sure that anybody comes in, you give them the same respect no matter what that person is. Everybody thinks that that person is a king when he enters my office. You need to do that. But that doesn't mean sometimes I need to decide myself. When things go bad, I become dictator or autocrat. I have to decide, but that's very little it happens. So I think this is an idea of what I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you. Fascinating. Right, so Poonam, if I can come back to you, when we look ahead at the future, what are the kind of leadership models that work, and how can we foster the next set of leaders? What are your thoughts around that? What kind of programs or initiatives have you tried or planning to try to foster the next set of leaders?
So first of all, we have a culture, and I worked hard at ensuring that there is a culture where mistakes are not, mistakes are in fact, we treat them as a learning experience, and there is no adverse consequence to mistakes. So people can afford to take risk, and people try innovation. They try to be as innovative as they can, and that kind of fosters creativity in any educational institution, and I dare say in any organization today. That is very important, that creativity be encouraged and creativity be celebrated. And creativity implemented really becomes innovation. So to have an innovative organization, there should be, the culture of the organization has to be one of virtually celebrating mistakes if it has to. But yes, absolutely. Anything new tried, with of course the right measures must be celebrated. Be it the student body, be it the faculty, be it the leadership. So there is no challenge to getting it right, not getting it right, or getting it right. There's no such thing as right or wrong. You just try to do the best you can. And so that is the organizational culture. But that alone is not enough. I think for me, I take great pride in standing up in front of the staff and saying, our culture is to promote from within where possible. And sometimes it's very important to bring leadership from outside, but we try to grow our leadership, instead of buying leadership, because the organizational values and the climate of the organization becomes a very positive one, where there is transparency also and effective monitoring also, if there are growth opportunities. Every time we have our fresh batch of cohort of teachers coming in, we always are very proud to say that so-and-so, who's the principal of this school, joined as a teacher so many years ago and has worked his or her way up in the organization. So those living examples are available in front of the staff. The other thing what we do is to actually have programs to develop that leadership. You have to constantly upskill your faculty, be it in pedagogy, be it in other skills needed, such as technology skills required. be it in interpersonal matters, whatever it is, team building. You have to constantly keep learning and develop that culture of learning. And we have developed many schemes that we are very proud of. For example, we have one which is called TOPS, which is teachers of outstanding practice who go and share their practice with other teachers and support good teachers to becoming outstanding teachers. We have another one called LEAPS, which are leaders, lead practitioners in the organization who go from school to school and cross-fertilize the team across, and sharing best practice. And we have another one which is for the student body, which is called ACES, and I can go on about that. But now we also have a lot of external leadership, external programs and internal programs. So, teachers who believe they've excelled in a particular area will then hold a session for any others who want to join in, which is really greatly facilitated with technology as well, the uses of all online communication methodology. So we subscribe to training outside organizations. We have experts, educators coming in to review the practice and give feedback and develop them on the spot. So we have a lot of measures in place, and most recently we are just launching a whole suite of programs which are considered to be best of class, and for leadership development specifically. Because what we found over the years is that we've grown our leaders, but now we really do need to upskill them in leadership. We didn't teach them how to lead.
Right.
So we now are launching that leadership program also.
Interesting. Lots of initiatives.
Yeah, a lot of initiatives. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Atif, if I can come to you next. So again, the same question in terms of fostering leadership. Again, you are in an industry where the pace of technological change is so intense. So how do you, what kind of attributes do you look for in a leader? Is it mostly, of course, technology is a key element, but also innovation, but also the other elements of empathy and so on, right? So what are the kind of, what do you look for in a leader?
Yeah, so in innovation specifically, last year we started this concept of experiment. So we allocated certain budget, certain timelines. There were key activities where previously our mindset used to be, okay, let's get a partner, let's get a vendor, let's buy a product, let's get someone to do it for us. I was like, okay, can we do it by ourselves? And can we experiment and give let's say the zone of failure, which is, and to really to take failure as a mechanism to get to success, that we have to go through failure. And to be honest, I was very happy with the results that came from that. It was about developing some predictive models based on the data that we have. We did it internally ourselves. We didn't depend on vendors, and that then brought the confidence to the team that okay, we can do it. We just need to be let's say empowered. We need to be with that empowerment. We need to put controls to make sure that they have all the support that they need to execute. But then also to drive the concept of accountability, because with empowerment comes also accountability, that, okay, I own this, I need to show the result, and to celebrate successes, and even to celebrate failures. So I would say those are the key, let's say, controls that we're trying to put in place to enable leaders. Now, personally for myself, I came from a technical background, and when I started to take some managerial positions, I used to intervene a lot or interfere into people's work, by suggesting ideas. And I think I was unconscious that maybe I'm either a head or a manager or now a CEO. And when I do a suggestion, some people take it as, okay, this is what the CEO wants. So I'm now changing my style into more of asking questions. And it is a learning curve. I'm still learning the skill. So I'm always trying to ask more questions, avoid making any specific ideas, except if it's needed in certain occasions, but I avoid as much as I can and that really, let's say, unlocks the potential of people to grow and to foster in the organization.
Thank you. Mr. Ramakrishnan, same question. How do you develop new leaders in your organization? Do you have any specific thoughts on bringing up the next set of leaders?
Yeah, thank you for that, Ranjit. I believe, money, of course, attracts people to join organizations. But I think more importantly, it is the culture that really attracts people when you sort of start seeking new people who want to come in and work for you. Ultimately, it's the culture that makes all the difference. You know, in a company like ours, which started off as a family organization, where, like in most family businesses, most decisions are generally made by the family members, the head of the family, things like that, you know. But over a period of time, you start moving into a scene where there is a totally different ethos. So you bring in the family culture, and at the same time, the professionalism that is needed for people to make decisions are really thrown out actually. At the end of the day, you can't be sitting down and saying that if I want to buy a piece of paper, it has to be with my approval. You know, you got to be moving ahead. And I think ultimately, these sort of cultural differences, what the organization stands for, what is the kind of values that it is preaching you, I think these are things that is so important for any of these new joinees who are likely to come in and work for us. For us in our organization, we've had people who've been with us for maybe 35 and 40 years who work with us, but I think today some of them struggle because the way things are happening has changed very quickly in the past 2 to 3 years' time. So we have also changed our approach in that respect, where one had the habit of people coming up, signing your musters in the morning and somebody looking at whether you came in at 9 or you came at 10. Today, I think you have to be open enough to accept that people are going to be working from home. Ultimately, what matters is, are they able to deliver and produce what has been kind of promised by them? These are the kind of matrices that you can really monitor on. But again, going forward, the markets have changed. Today, if you looked at the consuming markets have changed, the consumption patterns have changed, the likes and dislikes have changed. So the millennials have come in. I mean, the way they go and do their buying has completely gone through a change. So it's very important that when you bring in the new set of people, the youngsters who are likely to come in and join you, you have to understand and you have to give them the right way so that they are able to kind of put the path, lay the path down. Most importantly, what we as an organization tell them is to go back and tell them what are the kind of values that we stand for. Integrity is something which is very important for us. Innovation, as you spoke, is so important because in a changing world, if you're not innovative, if you're not going to be thinking out of the box, it's impossible for you to survive. You need to be respectful, as you said. You know, you have to be, just because you're young, it doesn't mean that you start being brash and starting to deal with people in a manner which can be hurtful. You have to be humble all the time. These are all some of the values that we have inculcated in the organization over the years. And I would look at all of these over and above what today's markets or today's demands are in the marketplace. It's not easy to get the people today because I think everybody are thinking from a different perspective. You know, we've had times when individuals come and join organizations, they would want to only retire from that organization right till the end they want to work. I mean, today you look at different sets of culture where people come in, they want to be there for a few years, they want to move on, you know. So you need to adapt. Again, the organization itself, what it is giving to them needs to be very adaptable. It has to be very nimble. It has to change. You can't be rigid in the way you've been doing things. So these are a lot of, let's say, employee farming. A lot of these things are happening within our organization where we keep on researching, bringing out new ideas. This morning, Indranu, he spoke about, that she's been writing letters to the parents of, the people who've been working for her. So we've been sort of following this practice for no more than 6-7 years. And it's very similar to what you said, the sort of emotions, the responses that we get back. But in turn, it also immensely connects the people who are working with your organization. So I think it's again a question of going through the journey and adapting yourself to the changing environment. That's how I would look at it. Definitely we need to have innovation, we need to have the humility, we need to have the kind of understanding of the organization, willing to play a long game. These are all very important aspects that I would be looking at. Definitely if you want to take it for a new kind of employees coming on board.
Thank you. Dr. Eesa, I would like to give you the final word. So as we look ahead as leaders, as we face these paradigms of technological disruption and digital transformation, environmental sustainability, inclusion and diversity, and this war for talent, you as an academic and an administrator, how do you think the academia is helping to foster leadership?
It's a tough question, by the way. First of all, one of the things we need to do for leadership sometimes is micromanage. Only initial stage. It's the worst if you continue doing it, because you need to understand what's happening. You can choose the right people, understand them, and from there you can use a succession plan for each one to grow and become second person or third person, because if somebody leaves and so on. As everybody is saying, the culture is very important. You need to create a culture that people want to work with you, even though they get better offers somewhere else, if they don't have the same environment and so on. When you look at technology, in the future, a leader always manages people. If you don't manage people, you're in the wrong place. You need to manage them well, you need to respect them, you need to interact with them, you need to listen to them. All this together is a part of, main part of the leadership. But also in the future, you need to also manage technology. Managing technology is very important. So one day it will come that technology will not be disruption. It will be in every part of every person's job. That technology, you need to know how to manage it. If you know how to manage it, you know how to manage people, then you are the right leader to lead either a department or a whole organization or a section and so on. So this is very important. Future of jobs and so on, any university in the world, I'm talking about the universities that actually are graduating quality graduates, they look at what is there in the market today and what is there tomorrow. You want to make sure that anybody graduates will graduate today and also will graduate for tomorrow. This is very important to look at the curriculum and sometimes revamp it, going according to the changes happening. In every, or actually maybe in the University of Dubai I could say that, when we look at the output of the university, we have 5 outputs we look at. One of them is academic degree, which is known. The other one is professional certificate, like ILM. A student could graduate and get an ILM, which is Institute of Leadership Management, automatically gets after graduation, means that the industry will not need to work for 2 years to prepare him or her, but actually starts from the university. We do it and we actually match all these professional plus the academic contents, and it works. Thirdly is we look at lifelong learning, LLL, lifelong learning. This should be a part of it within the university before they graduate. Fourth one, we graduate, the Highness Sheikh Mohammed Rashid issued a decree that saying that all universities should be economic free zones in innovation and entrepreneurship. We have that in University of Dubai. And we graduate startups. So we graduate employers. The fifth, which comes now, the leadership. Every student who graduates should go through the soft skills. And there are more than 20 soft skills available. One of them, the leadership. They have to go through these traits and do soft skills in order for them to graduate to be ready for the market. Once you are ready, you are already a leader at the beginning. Even if you are leading somebody is leading you, you are still a leader by yourself. This will have a natural growth and organic growth to become a more better leader and so on. If you look at this and the university fulfills these 5 outputs, we will make sure that the graduate will excel tremendously, and you see them leaders of the future. When you talk about technology, Technology is not a goal. Technology is a tool. It's an element you use to fulfill your requirements. Why we use technology? For us, for the student to learn, for the student to develop, for the student to plan. So anything we use mainly for the student to, one thing I like to say is for the student to love. I have a motto, I call it L2L, love to learn. When you instill in the student the love to learn through the technology, you are doing it correctly. Because the goal is not the technology, the goal is to make the student love to learn in order for him to excel and for him to be reaching his ambitions and reaching his goals. So this is the thing I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eesa. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time. Thank you, Poonam and the gentlemen for your inspiring views and thoughts and for sharing your experiences. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you.